the changes in the economic landscape can be explained by the behavior of consumers and professional buyers. If professional buyers and consumers buy more goods and services, economy goes up. If we, for some reason, and these reasons may be out of our reach, if for some reason we are going to buy less, our economy is going to suffer. And this is reflected in something which we call the Purchasing Managers' Index. Most countries in Europe keep record of this Purchasing Managers' Index, and what it does is we keep a record based on actual figures, by actual data provided by actual buyers about the contracted volume of last month compared to the previous month. And this results in this scheme. This is a Dutch scheme. This is coming from the Dutch Association of Purchasing Management. And you see here that the Purchasing Managers' Index in Holland came down to 46 to 49 value. And that means that a value of 50 indicates no growth. No growth, no change compared to the previous month. A change, if you have a value above 50, means we have contracted more than the previous month. So business got more assignments. However, you see that in the past months, we see that economic activity has declined. The situation is getting less worse, you see that, but it's still below 50. So last month we had brought less volume into the Dutch market than the month before. You also see here that this index consists of several other entities, and I will discuss these ones. What we also do is we keep track as buyers of these companies. We do a survey among 350 companies, and the buyers also keep track of what orders did you get from customers. We divide them between export orders and new orders. You see that? So you see the export orders are not doing badly. In fact, we had a small increase last month. But the inland orders, the orders coming from Dutch customers, are lagging behind, still getting slower. So export orientation is saving a country a little. Then we look at, for instance, the purchase prices and what we call the supplier lead times. Now, what we see is purchase prices are going up. So that means that there is more demand than supply for those commodities that we buy. That's a good sign, in fact. And we also see that our businesses are able to translate these purchase prices into higher sales prices, which is good because these companies are going to save their margins, right? Now, what we also see is that supplier lead times are getting a little better. It is getting shorter, and that means that for us that is better. Yeah, so that's an index that's just the reverse of the other ones. And then you have the inventory situations over here, and you see that companies are still bringing down their inventories to free up cash for, times that are going to be worse. So what we see is that if you look at what can we derive from that, what can we conclude from that, for Holland it means, one, situation is not good, but it could be much worse. Secondly, given this development, it might be that we have a shorter recession than the 12 months that I predicted initially. Probably it's going to take less months in order to get growth back on track again. And the first signs are there. So we may steer free from a severe crisis due to these, based on these data. Now you probably have looked at this scheme. You see this scheme. Suppose you are an entrepreneur. You're a manager responsible for managing your company, and you're confronted with this kind of environment. This they didn't told you at business school, that life would be that difficult. So if you want to survive as an organization, and the picture is the same for Germany, it's the same for the UK, it's the same for, even worse, for Italy. So if you have to survive as an entrepreneur, as a company, in this kind of market circumstances, what will be your suggestions. What would you suggest? What you need to organize for is flexibility. Flexibility. We come back to perhaps on Darwin, origin of the species. What did Darwin say? It is not the biggest creatures that will survive. It's not the strongest. It is not the most intelligent. Sorry for that. It is the most adaptive that will survive. It's also true for business. So if you're confronted with this kind of, and I think that due to, say, information technology, the changes will be bigger and bigger. Just give you an example. DEF Trucks. DEF Trucks is a truck manufacturer in Holland. You might have heard of that. And they were confronted here. They made in August 2008, they produced 265 trucks a day. Within 3 months, it was back to 68. There's another company, ASML, close to Eindhoven, where my university is. They make wafer steppers. Wafer steppers is high-tech equipment to produce microchips. Wafers, chips on it. They sell about 10 to 50 million a piece. They normally do every quarter a turnover of 1.2 billion euro. Within 3 months, they were back to 600 million. How do you survive such a company? Both companies still exist today, thanks to good management, thanks to the fact that they have organized for flexibility. Now, the interesting thing is, if you're a procurement manager of those companies, what implications would that have for you as a procurement manager? Suppose that you would say, well, I don't care so much. I need to reduce cost. Whatever. And you know what? If I give a supplier a 4-year contract, he probably, and a fixed volume, he probably gives me a better deal. Would you feel that those purchasing managers would do a great service to these companies? They said, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, we have also reduced the number of suppliers. Yeah, because if we have less suppliers, you know, we can get better, less volume, more volume over less suppliers, we get better deals. So what? What did you do to increase flexibility? Both companies learned from this and this recession. In fact, this recession. They said, instead of contracting for fixed volumes, we're going to contract for flexibility. We're going to send broadcasts every week about our production planning so that our suppliers can, you know, anticipate on our future needs, on the needs to come. So we need to calibrate much more intensively with our suppliers in order to create that flexibility. When the economy is picking up, they should, you know, ramp up their production quickly. If economy goes down, we should communicate them, and we should warn them in advance that things are coming. So they should bring their productivity down. We need people who are able to communicate. Yeah. So a few interesting lessons here, and these are the sub-indices that we use to manage our companies. Now, this is the scene. This is the scene. So what we see is that we as buyers, we drive or slow down the economy. The Purchasing Managers Index increasingly has got accepted by major economists as a key leading indicator today. Yeah? So we're getting acceptance there. What is this? Okay. I now move to the issue of the role of procurement in organizations. I hope you also have done this for the company that you work for. When I go to a company, and this is a construction firm, the first thing I do is I look into the annual statement and I look at the cost structure of that company. And what you see here, is a company, a construction company, which operates at a profit of 1.5. It has an added value of 20%. And it has external cost of 70.5%. We call that purchasing-related cost. What is purchasing-related cost? Everything the company gets an invoice for. People say, are you sure? Because purchasing is what purchasing contracts. I say, well, that's another definition. That's purchasing in a narrow sense. But I look at purchasing in the broadest sense, and I am not so much interested who makes the contract or makes the deals. I'm interested in the total purchasing spend of a company. And that's at 70.5%. This is already a very insightful picture. It's so simple. What can you refer to it from it? Well, one, you can conclude that if this company is able to slash down 2% of its purchasing cost, it will double, more than double its profit. That's a message that every CFO understands. The other question, the other observation is that this company, in terms of employment, creates 3 times as many jobs external to the company as it has internal. So for every person that works inside our company, 3 people work outside our company. And the question is that I have is, do we use the brains of those people? How do companies usually manage their company? How are our companies usually managed? By, creating and improving the productivity of their own people. How do they do that? Most managers say, Arjan, this is all about it. We need to have the best people. We have to recruit the best people. We have to train those people. We have to appraise annually those people. We have to reward them properly. And we have to make sure that those people that are good, that they stay with us. That's what we need to do. And we have to provide them with the proper infrastructure so that they can perform better. It started with giving everyone a PC. Then we have given them CAD/CAM systems. Today we have given them iPads, so that also during the weekend they might be able to do some work for the firm. Check some email. Yeah? And we have already put the pressure on the people to such an extent that the home front is going to complain. I don't know whether you have that at your home. That people say, do we ever have free time? I know people who take their Blackberries and their iPads with them to the beach, not to miss out on any company messages. These are loyal people, right? Now, I'm exaggerating a little, of course. Now, the point I want to make is, how are we dealing with these people over here? How do construction firms in general deal with their subcontractors and material suppliers? Well, I have a few ideas. I think the differences between Swedish companies and Dutch companies are not so much different. I tell you what the Dutch companies do. They say, well, what you do is, for the things that you need to buy, you ask 5 bids. You say to the lowest bidder that he's far too expensive. You negotiate, and you try to make the best possible deal. That's what we do. And when I have talked to all these buyers of all these construction firms in Holland, and if I have to believe them, everybody has the best deal in the market. Everybody is smarter than someone else. How is that possible if everybody is saying that? That becomes clear when one construction firm takes over another one and is going to compare bids and rates and fees, etc. And they come to a surprise that they say, we thought we had the best bid, but we never. There's quite a difference. Yeah? So the question is, what can companies do to differentiate themselves in that area, to make sure that suppliers are going to make a difference to the business in which we are operating? To put it in other words, what can we do to make strategic suppliers stand out, and they should help us to make the difference in the relationships with our customers. So, because in this picture we say that suppliers not only determine 78.5% of a company cost, but also 78.5% of the carbon footprint of this company, of its business risk, of its innovation potential, and finally, of its customer value. And this was the picture I would like to show you. I took this from a car magazine. It is a Sirocco. It's a Volkswagen, you know, car. And what I like about this picture, it's too small for you to read, is I see all the different parts here. And under the parts, you see the names of the suppliers. And my question is, do you think that these suppliers have an impact on the quality of that car? Do you think that these suppliers have an impact on the time to market of that car? Of the serviceability, the reliability of that car? Do you think that these suppliers even can influence the styling of that car? The touch and feel of that car? For sure. For sure. If one of those suppliers, you know, lets us down, and when one of these parts is confronted with a major defect, it may ruin our reputation. Do we have examples where a supplier of a car manufacturer, just by one part, was bringing the company in discredit and damaging the reputation of the company? Does the name Toyota come to mind? The brake system, the brake problems that they had 2 years ago, you know? So it's a very sensitive thing that we are talking about. And the question is, do we pay sufficient attention to the other things? We know this impact, but do we also, you know, have an idea of, do we also benefit from the contributions of suppliers in these areas? Good. Now, if these issues, 78 point, cost reduction, it's cost reduction and carbon footprint, and business risk reduction, and innovation, and creating customer value are relevant, would you think that that can be dealt with procurement? Would you think that would be possible to deal with all these issues by procurement professionals only? Of course not. Of course not. It is, by definition, a cross-functional activity. Cross-functional activity. And this has been perceived by managers. And therefore they have said, okay, from now on, it's not the buying function anymore that is going to do the buying. It's going to be a cross-functional activity. And this is at the heart of category sourcing, category management. So what I want to do is, many firms today have created category sourcing teams at a corporate level, regional level, sometimes at a local country level, to take care of, say, contracts, to take care of supplier relations, to take care of supplier performance. Yeah? And these cross-functional teams are supposed to work together internally. Now, we have taken one example taken from practice about rollers. And what I'd like to do is to have a discussion with you about what are your major observations based upon the case rollers. What would you say see as most important issues, challenges for this specific team that are happening to this team? And since it's a complex case study, but you're very experienced people, I give you 8 minutes to discuss and to come forward with 3, 4 key observations. And I'm sure that if we gather all the observations, we have a complete picture. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. 8 minutes. Are there any questions first related to the case rollers? Did you bring the case study along? No. Find someone who did. Thank you. Yeah? So please, and just discuss with your neighbors as you're sitting here. 8 minutes.